Hello, my friends. Well, today I think it has become important, much more important than typically, to speak about those things that make facts and reality. Uh, During all this past couple of years, we have been moving in a very large environment of misinformation, disinformation, and a lot of exaggerations uh, created by either the political system, the politicians themselves, and or uh, people, the common folk, you and I, right? Now, I would like to uh, make it a point, and this is the reason why I'm making this video today. I find it a little bit hard because of the lighting, but we'll deal with that. Um, See, we have been, um, we have forgotten essentially. I remember, if you are around my age, we're talking, went to high school between around the years of the 1970s, 1960s, when the British Revolution was a big thing here in the United States, well, around the world in reality. And many people used to run around claiming that we were coming to the end of times. I don't know if you guys remember it, but rock and roll was a big thing. And people found out that if you play the records backward, you can make out some sounds that it sounds like Satan is talking to you. They also claim that, guitars being played in the church is also another symptom of Satan coming into the world and the world coming to an end. This is the environment in 1970. The reason why I'm going through this before we get into this is because I want you all to understand this is not the first time that we have that environment or that mentality where they claim people get panicked and their only hope is that, maybe we are coming to the end of times and there will be some kind of protector of the universe that will set things right. Well, I have a surprise for most of you for that essence, is that the coming of the Savior in Christianity has been promised since around the year 100. Officially since the year 325, when Constantine actually made Christianity the official religion. And it was what was guiding everything until the year 1768, thereabouts, when the age of, science came around and said, you know what? We have to be looking at something other than this Bible, which is a 2,000 plus year old book, to solve today's problems. So, in the 1960s, when I was growing up, in 1970s, when I went through high school, we learned something important, which is how to identify facts from fiction. Now, when we look at research and evidence, especially in this channel, we need to understand, and this is going to be a long video, I'm sorry, but it has to, because people are just going all over the place. We have to have verified historical and legal documents. Okay? These are documents that have been written, and we know who the authors are, what their expertise is, and what the meaning in their culture is. So we don't get confused. We don't get confused about the meaning of these documents. These documents have been read by they have been written by authorities in the matter. They have been read by authorities in the matter, and they have agreed that that is the meaning of that document. And they are based on facts that can be found, such as when you read about American history, can you go back and find the cannons and the arrows and the things that are written in American history in the places where it happened? You can read about the history of Virginia, and you can go to places in Virginia and you find documents that write specifically about this particular place, and you find the arrows, the guns, the cannons, the houses, the teepees, whatever it is that's writing about. You find some kind of physical evidence, and the experts in Virginia history, in history of Virginia, agree that the meaning of those documents is X, Y, and Z. So that is one way that we verify historical documents. We do not. We have to look at historical documents. For example, when you read about the fables of Aesopus, anybody heard that? Those are historical documents. They are historical documents as far as, this author wrote these stories, but the stories that he wrote are not themselves historical. Aesopus wrote stories that were supposed to teach men something about saving, about work ethic, but for some reason or other he wrote about it always about animals. The ants are working all summer long while the crickets are playing their violin, and when the winter comes around, well, the crickets have nothing to eat, but the ants do. And in some versions of the story, the crickets die of hunger. In some versions of the story, the ants share their food with the crickets. This, you can say, is a historical document as far as it was written. But it's not a historical document as far as there were no ants. There was no one particular event in which ants actually did this. The author is writing about a natural process in nature, which can be used to say, hey, you should work all year long, not spend your summers and doing nothing. Come winter, you have nothing, So, when you speak about holy books, well, the holy books are supposed to teach you something. They are not historical documents that specify something, because curiously, you cannot find anything like when you read about the history of Virginia, or when you read something about the Old Testament. You go to look in the old digs, and it is hard, if not impossible, to find exactly what they're talking about in the holy books, and we will cover this later on. Okay, the fact is, even the most studied doctors in these books understand that they're not literal historical books. So, having said that, when we talk about research and evidence, we talk about verified historical documents and or books that have been written by experts and verified by experts. Okay? Now, on the second, we have experiments where you say, hey, I want to see what temperature does water boil at. Well, we now know that water boils at around 212 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. However, if I carry on an experiment, because that happens often, you have one individual carries on an experiment under very stringent conditions. And one condition goes off, he doesn't notice. A piece of equipment is broken. A data point is mistakenly graphed. And he claims, my discovery is that water boils at 98 degrees Fahrenheit. And everybody's like, wow, that's unexpected because 98 degrees is body temperature, right? But he says, hey, I did my experiment. This is how I found it. Other scientists carry on the same experiment and they find, hey, no, water does not boil until it hits 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So what happened with the first experiment? Well, there was a flaw in it. This is why it is important to have what we call peer-reviewed experiments. Because as much of a scientist as you may be, as much of an expert as you may be in your field, when you take data points, when you do experiments, you're capable of committing a mistake. And yes, you're going to publish the results of your experiment. But you will not be able to find your own mistakes. The only way you will find your mistakes is if you allow other experts in your field to repeat the experiment and find if indeed water boils at 98 degrees or at 212. When you find that your peers found something different, you have the humility to say, hey, I must have committed a mistake. And this is why in today's world also we have a lot of people, oh no, Dr. So-and-so, he had an experiment and he found out that, hydro peroxide, whatever, heals all your wounds. And it's like, no, hydrogen peroxide is pretty good at cleaning some wounds, but it's not a clean all kind of thing. It works in some and it doesn't work in others. Okay, like for example, if you have a virus and it's affecting a wound, a virus came in through your wound, you can put hydrogen peroxide all day long in that wound. The virus is still going to be going all throughout your body and there is no way you're going to be able to take it out. You need to be open to say, hey, I could be wrong. Okay. And in that being wrong is I have to have my predictions, my experiments, my opinions be judged by others. So if I'm the only scientist that is claiming that the sun is red and every other scientist is saying, no, the sun is not red, then that means that I am wrong. I have to review my judgment. And if I don't want to do that, that just means that I am just full of hubris and I'm willing to lead other people down the wrong path. That is not evidence. Statistical data, verified. We have to have, and this goes under the same guise, that we do experiments, we take data, we write it down, but sometimes that data may be skewed, may be wrong. So what do? We have other experts in our field verify the data, see how we took it, see what we did with it, in order to be able to verify. And these are just steps in order to determine when we have facts and versus when we have opinions. We have also pictures, audio files, video files that we also use as evidence of what we're saying. Now, those videos, those audio files have to be verified to see if they have been altered in some way or another. Sometimes something as little as enlarging an image creates something that is not even acceptable in court. However, we accept it in our mass media communications, as, oh wow, we made this larger, so now it looks like this, and everybody thinks that now that's a fact, when we know that artificial intelligence, what it will do is when you enlarge the image, the spaces that would be blank, it fills them up with what it thinks should be there, or what it logistically thinks it would be there. Now, I'm not an expert in artificial intelligence. There may be a different process than the one that I have interpreted. I accept that. But nevertheless, the enlarged picture is something significantly different from the smaller picture. Okay, so oftentimes it cannot be taken as evidence. Okay, unless you keep it at the same size as it originally was taken, and from that size you can determine whatever fact you're trying to determine, the color of the car, the number of the plate, whatever, and finally, eyewitness accounts. Okay, when we talk about eyewitness accounts, we have to understand that people have a tendency to exaggerate, to fill in gaps, just like artificial intelligence. When we forget something, we create the story that we're missing. We like, well, what happened here? Well, I don't remember what the color of the suit was, but I think it was gray. And before you know it, it stays gray. Now, this is important because, for example, back in the old days in Mexico, they had a small writing which called my attention. And in Spanish, it said, La señora se subió en el cocodrilo para darle la vuelta a la ciudad. The translation is, the woman got on the crocodile to go around the city. Now, this is an actual eyewitness account. Somebody saw that. The only problem that we have here is that in Mexico, and only in the central part of Mexico, because in the northern part of Mexico this is not used, the word crocodile, okay, was the name given to taxis. You see why? Because they take a bite out of your wallet. So it was very common to call a taxi a crocodile. Now, this is not so long ago. We're talking this was happening back in 1930s, 1940s. And we are now in the year 2000. If somebody was to read that paragraph, and make it part of their belief, their holy structure, or their evidentiary facts. They say, hey, somebody saw this woman get on a crocodile and go around the city, so crocodiles must have been tamed. No. Crocodiles were not in the city. It was taxis. But we, outside of that culture, would be unable to properly understand or translate or interpret that phrase. So when we take eyewitness accounts, we have to understand that we also have to understand culture. We have to understand personality. There's a lot of things. So that's why I want to make sure, I'm not sure how long this is going to take. I hope it's not too long. But when we talk about evidence, okay, in order to understand whether what we are looking at in Facebook, TikTok, the news, we have to look at all these facts and then put them by logic, by the side of logic. Because, I mean, think about it. The first question in the example that I just said about the crocodile, does it sound logical that a person would go around the city on top of a crocodile? And I didn't say possible, it's illogical. It's not. Because why? Because, hey, why not a horse? Horses are much faster and much better. I mean, unless they were not available. But I mean, if you have cars, which obviously at that point in time there were already cars, why not a car? Why not a bicycle? It doesn't make sense, right? So we have to take a broad look at what's being presented to us and not just focus our vision on what excites us, what tells us, oh, this is different, this is new, this is hair tonic, it will make your hair grow. No, we need to sit down, relax, and say, okay, what is this guy selling? Why is he saying this? Who are the experts that are verifying what this guy is saying? And if they are not, why are they not? And don't just make up reasons in your mind. Well, must be because he doesn't like him. Yeah, usually that has some factor in our decisions. But usually we don't like something because we have had an experience before that leaves a bad taste in our mouth. Now, if we are talking about scientists, which is what we're trying to focus on, right? Typically, it is because, hey, you know what? We have done this kind of experiment before, and it didn't work out because we had these flaws or these difficulties. We have to be open to being wrong if we want to actually do research. Because when you go and do research, thinking and hoping that you're right, well, you're going to find what you're looking for. If you Google and say, well, I don't know, do stars explode? Which is typical, not all stars explode all the time. Do stars explode? Yeah, they do in different places and typically, hopefully, far away from us. The stars that are right around us, I'm not an expert, but I would say more likely than not, they do not all explode, because I think that we would be feeling a lot of effects from a lot of explosions. But if I go in there looking for, do stars explode? Because I do believe that stars, yeah, it's going to tell me that stars do explode. But then I got to look at, hey, what is the percentage of stars exploding in the universe versus stars that don't explode. And I might find a different answer. I don't know what it is right now because I have no bias. I have no desire for it to be one way or another. I have an expectation, but if it's wrong, it's not going to affect me. Now, compare that, for example, with, is there a soul? Most people will cringe and their little hairs will curl up because we have been taught that the only difference between men and animals is our soul. And we expect to find that somehow or other our soul is what makes us different. However, in reality, science hasn't really found any evidence of any ethereal existence outside of your brain. Is there one? I don't know. I just know there is no evidence that I can put under any of this. The only evidence is that I was told that I have a soul. But I really don't have, I can't say, hey, listen, here's your soul. No, I can't. And when I die, I can't prove to you that I'm coming back or that I'm still, I don't, So do I wish that I have a soul? Yeah, it'd be kind of nice if I can live, because that would mean that I can keep on living forever. That's a bias. I would like to live forever. However, I have to accept that I have no empirical evidence. I have no evidence that I can prove and say, hey, beyond a reasonable doubt, there is a soul. There is no proof. Okay? And I have to be able to step outside that comfort zone and say, yeah, well, I'm sorry. I hope I do. But if I don't, what's the difference? I'm going to close my eyes. Things will go dark. That's it. But somehow or other, people are terrified of this. People get terrified of, hey, well, you're just going to go to sleep. Either way, it's a hope that we have. And so our bias guides us to look for answers that say, yeah, you have a soul. And this is why. See, if you die, your body will lose, 0.25 pounds. Well, yeah, because there is going to be liquids that will evaporate. There will be gases that will leave your body, and that will account for the weight that you lose. But that doesn't prove anything about the soul. Now, moving on to other things. In accidents, people tend to exaggerate. Usually, when you have a large gathering of people that claim to have seen an accident, you have at least 4 or 5 different descriptions as to what happened and who was wearing what. So we have the bottom line is we have to be very careful when we look for evidence towards the things that we believe in. Okay, this is important right now because we're living in a period in which, sadly, politicians and mass media channels are actually using me, getting people riled up, because the way that they make money is by getting people excited. The mass media channels, the news, the TV channels, they get money by getting ratings. They get ratings by getting people excited to go and see whatever it is that they're advertising. Politicians, the way that they make their money is by getting you excited to go over to their side, regardless whether they're right or wrong. They don't care. They'll tell you that your mother is a virgin if that's what they need to do in order to get you to go to their side. However, we know that that is not true. We have to be responsible. We have to be careful because there are a lot of interests in moving us as a mass towards this side or towards this side. And it is our responsibility to be able to understand when we are being manipulated, not just by what we were taught to believe. Because as I said, yeah, we were taught to believe that we have a soul. But in reality, I know, and I've gone through this with scientists and with priests and with, you cannot prove empirically that you have a soul. It's a hope, it's a faith, and it's fine, because we have to have, it makes us better when we have hope for a better world. But we have to be honest and say, you know what? I don't have evidence for this. And that's fine. But we got to be honest with ourselves in order to be able to find out the truth, to be objective and to be able to get evidence, so we do not get manipulated into supporting things that will eventually turn out against ourselves and against our children. Well, for today, I think that this is all, my friends. I hope to go ahead and continue this. We're going to deal with this evidentiary fact-finding, and we'll try to educate ourselves by addressing different things that come out in the media, and seeing, okay, well, how can we determine what's fact and what's fiction? And by practicing, hopefully, we will get to a better place than where we are right now. Have a good night. I'll see you guys later.